Bienvenidos, Fright fans, and welcome to the horror show. I'm Jaime and Fuego.
Katie Layden here.
And we are here to do a special patron-requested review of a España film. That is right, a horror, comedy, fantasy. It's got a lot of weird stuff going on. Thank you to Mikey Mnemonic for requesting this. We are talking La Noche de la Virgen, also known as
The Night of the Virgin.
Yes, that's right. And so always in these sort of approaches, guys, we like to give our overall thoughts. We like to give a little bit about story, acting, effects, music, or, sound design and things like that, if anything important to reference. And so overall, this movie really aspires to disgust and do it in a funny manner, right?
It did that.
In spades?
In spades, yes. Thank you.
Yeah, it definitely, grosses out, at least in my estimation. Just, very short setup before we, go into story and stuff after overall impressions. Yes, you would think The Night of the Virgin would be about a, young, the virgins, they
are so innocent.
I know, they taste so good. Guillermo, you're scaring the virgins. We've been watching too much What We Do in the Shadows TV series lately. But, yeah, so you would think The Night of the Virgin, it's going to be about a girl, and, who knows what sort of situation she's finding herself in. But this flips the script, and it's about a guy, and he's out on New Year's Eve in Spain, and he's trying to hook up with girls, not really transpiring too well. He ends up meeting a crazy woman, older one, who takes him back cougar status, and he thinks he's going to get some action. He gets more than he bargained for.
And I will say this, it is promising at first.
Yeah.
Before they get to the apartment, because her dress is beautiful, she's got a good style, she's alluring, so you could see why he would choose to go home with her.
Well, it's really the only one that gives him the time of day. So,
okay, yeah. Fair enough.
You take what you can here. But, yeah, it turns into something completely different once you get back to the home and you realize the sinister nature of this woman. I guess, long story short, from my estimation and impression, it's really gross, but played to that comedic effect, but it is kind of serious in some ways, too. It's a weird hodgepodge of just gross out humor and just over-the-top gore and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I found appreciation in it, but I can't say that I loved it, even though Dead Alive and Deathgasm and Army of Darkness and things like that. I love when gore is done for gross out effect, and I think this is what it was trying to do
but
here.
But didn't quite get to that point for whatever reason.
You can see that it was wearing its influences on its sleeve, obviously. So, as far as overall impressions for you, you just don't think it really hit that mark it was shooting for?
No, I don't. I think it fell a bit short of that mark, and there were just too many elements that were gratuitously disgusting, where I was like, do we really need this? I get it. Like we talked about earlier, Dead Alive, super great. There's been plenty of scenes in cinematic history where there's people like holding lawnmowers, like mowing down zombies, and like, what's not to love about that? But there's just something a little less endearing about these weird situations that the characters find themselves in, and it waxes a little bit long in that regard, I think. So
yeah, you definitely feel the runtime about halfway through where you're like, they're still in the apartment. Nothing. And
they are trapped in that apartment, and there's something to be said.
And there's an essence of convenience, though, to the fact that pretty much the whole thing takes place in the apartment. That's the epitome of low-budget filmmaking, is having just one location, pretty much. There's the club at the beginning, but you keep it in one space, and you save costs significantly in that regard. But the whole thing takes place in this grimy apartment, and so I don't know. Just segueing into story at this particular point, I did enjoy the fact that they flipped the script and made it a virgin, this virgin Nico, this guy who's at the club at the beginning, and he's getting shot down by everyone. As you mentioned, his friends are like,
his friends
they're assholes.
They're texting him throughout the movie. There are some really, really funny elements that pop up where he finds his phone. He actually at one point in time loses his phone, which I won't go into details about.
Where he loses his phone.
Where
that's a
he
little
loses
bit later.
His phone,
Mikey knows.
That's a pretty funny point to not mention but allude to.
No.
He re-finds it, and you're like, oh my god, what are these people doing? Like, do they care about your well-being, or are they just like whatever?
A phone going into an orifice, let's put it that way.
Yeah, how many orifices will a phone really fit into? Okay. Anyway,
I
I don't mean
persistence?
to give anything. I guess it depends on your phone.
Maybe.
I think it really depends on your phone.
If you have
are we talking flip phones here?
Or if we're talking like a iPhone Plus, that's like almost the size of a tablet, then you may need a looser caboose. But so his friends are total buttholes to him, and they're just egging him on, especially once after the pretty girl barfs on him that's really drunk, he tries to dance on, and then, the alluring Medea, so not to be confused with Tyler Perry's Medea. This is a reference, very obviously, as we find out more about this character, to Greek mythology, as you pointed out to me.
A Greek enchantress, who of note, yes.
Yeah, so she hooked up with Jason and the Argonauts, all kinds of, Greek mythology of that nature back then. But I have to say, that's a like red flag warning sign about this lady that our boy Nico is going home with. But he's like got the bug eyes and the buck teeth and looks just, I don't know, he's also kind of being slimy with the women too, so it's almost like he kind of gets what he deserves.
Yeah, they set him up to almost deserve it. They're like, oh, he's not so great.
No.
Now you can hate him and it'll be okay when all these horrible things happen to him.
Which they do.
He
still continues doing dumb and gross stuff throughout the proceedings, so it's not like he's redeeming himself in any degree.
At no point in time does he redeem himself. No. I don't even think, not even once.
No, he does a lot of gross things, and
a lot of dumb things that he's been told specifically not to do.
By the friends in the text thread.
Yep.
Yeah,
well, and also by Medea? Yeah, also by her.
She warns him.
Don't do these 3 specific things, or however many it is.
And he does pretty much everything she advises him not to do, most notably go into her bathroom where she has a container of blood. It's a special kind of blood without getting into it. And he just happens to spill it. This is early in the movie, so it's really what kind of sets up specifically what ends up happening later on as far as ritualistic aspects. And when they pull the curtain back completely and you realize the essence of the ritual, somebody is going to be a host for some sort of anti-Christ kind of thing. It just doesn't end up becoming exactly what you think. This is where we have to really dance around without spoiling.
Exactly, because
in the
there's
third act,
just too many details that are spoilery. But
Yeah, so I mean that's about as much as we can say about the story, with the exception of the fact that her jealous boyfriend does show up, and he's on the other side of the door yelling at them throughout the predominance of the second and third act. And it does, pacing-wise, really, it's just the same thing over and over for a while in the middle of the movie. It's just like, oh, he's yelling and cussing and threatening the guy who she's there with, and then you can tell she still has feelings for him, and then skinny Nico, little virgin kid's trying to escape, and he just cannot escape. There's these funny gay guys up above that are having very loud, hilarious sex, and he screams up out the window to them for help, and they just throw their used sex stuff down on his. It's really it's too much. It really is. But some of those beats were some of the more amusing ones in it. But as far as performance and stuff goes, I mean, we've honestly said at this point that the story, while an interesting flip of the script, didn't wow completely. But what did you think of the acting? Honestly, let's not even say Nico. What did you think of this femme fatale? This creepy, almost praying mantis cougar woman that she turns out to be.
I wasn't totally unimpressed.
Yeah?
I would have liked to have seen maybe a few more different environments, maybe a few more different characters to allow her to flex her acting muscles, but at the same time, there is something to be said for actors and actresses who do well in an environment where there is not a lot going on with very few amounts of people.
Yeah, they have to shoulder a lot.
And I really respect that. I mean, she sold me on it. I felt like she really believed in the things that she was trying to get him to do, and so that's really...
She had a little bit of an allure to her, and I will definitely say that. Yeah, she had an enchanting aspect, despite being kind of a weird, slightly creepy cougar older woman. There was kind of a weird older hotness about her. That, I mean, you could kind of tell that, she kind of cast this glamour spell on him to have him come back with her in the first place. Okay. But yeah, he definitely exuded pathetic very well in his performance.
Yes, okay.
That's the best way I can describe it.
I did pay a little bit more attention to him, I think, than any other character, and maybe that is because of those weird
He does some skeevy things too.
Well, and he plays pathetic really well, and so
especially in the club scene at the very beginning on New Year's Eve.
Absolutely,
and stuff.
and you're like,
I mean,
look
this
at
whole thing takes place on New Year's Eve. Yeah, and really the only other major character that we get, we only see a couple times because he doesn't show up till the end, and that's the jealous boyfriend on the other side. He's really just a voice screaming back and forth with the two of them inside the apartment, but it's a good convincing performance. And granted, just another thing to let y'all know, La Noche del Virgin, the Night of the Virgin is completely in Spanish and it's subtitled in English, and so there's just so much of his cussing in Spanish at her. I'm like, I know all those words very, very well.
That was very colloquial.
Yeah. So I mean, performance-wise, they have a good dynamic. It's kind of creepy and gross and stuff, but they have enough chemistry to really, especially as the relationship develops from kind of erotic and like a turned-on charge to when you realize what's really going on, and just the frustration and the anger and the resentment, and just, I mean, really trying to fight for your life as it kind of becomes with Nico. I thought that both of them, with the majority of a film to shoulder, I thought that they were pretty good.
I concur.
Yeah. Even if the story had some weak points, I felt like the performances were definitely convincing and solid. So.
Yep, and they made up for it.
They did. So, I mean, after covering acting and story and overall impressions, we really at this point just have effects and sound design. And I want to save effects.
Oh my gosh!
Okay. I want to save effects for last because of the fact that that's where they really got the grossness across. But sound design, I mean, there is.
The Foley artist deserves whatever great award that you could get for Spanish cinema for doing whatever the heck it was they did to really sell those scenes, because there was a lot of squelching without giving anything away. Lots of squelching.
Well, I mean, there is, you see, once again, this is where it's tough because of the fact that the end game is where we see the predominance of the grossness really transpiring in this. And I mean, once again, an antichrist of sorts growing in the body of someone, and it's just done in a really gross manner. But I mean, we did mention the whole. Well, actually, we didn't quite mention the design of the apartment and stuff, and I think that is something to make reference of because the
it's
place
dilapidated,
where
extremely,
it's very much so.
Very
there's
neglected.
There's like roaches crawling around, and that's one of the things she tells him not to do. Remember?
She's all, "Don't crush the roaches. It's bad luck." And he's like,
"I
hate roaches."
Yeah, so I'm just like
a compulsion.
squashing them throughout.
I don't blame him.
Yeah,
I hate roaches too.
Yeah, and then going in and spilling special blood in the bathroom, but just the design of this small apartment and just how rundown and gross it looks. It got the point across as far as just really making you feel that whole bunker trapped aspect.
The revulsion.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. And so the set design was really good in that regard. Sound design, I mean, when the squishy griminess really starts getting more intense, you definitely hear it, the cracking of certain bones and things once the conflict gets a little bit fiercer between some of the characters. But I mean, soundtrack is you've got some disco-y silliness at the club early, and then I mean there is a little bit of a, I don't know, the score was not something immensely memorable.
I would say relatively nondescript, although if I watched it again, I might change my mind because
second viewing is always
I was so immersed in the visceral nature of these things that were going on.
Well, the imagery
visually, so that can tend to distract you from any music, although sometimes the music can enhance that. So
it can, but I mean that at the forefront, and the reason I compared this to something like Baskin with Cecil, even though in tone it's most definitely not, it's in the grossness of some of the visuals that we get later on in this film that I can really say that the practical, along with the interesting chemistry between our two leads, is the two best aspects of this film. And this is once again where we can't divulge as much about the nature of the effects that we see, but the spot on grossness of a birthing sequence that happens. That one is,
I mean, birth is never pleasant to look at, but think
this
about how bad it can be to begin with
this
naturally, and just imagine if we're riffing on that. That's not quite where you would expect a baby to be emerging.
Yeah, that's definitely dancing on the lines a little bit, but yeah, it's just a different type of pregnancy, different type of birth. It's kind of got an accelerated aspect to a degree, but yeah. So I mean, between the design of that and we do get a kind of little bad Milo-y sort of creature of sorts,
Yeah.
Hell Baby sort of vibe at times in this, and I think they were all made around the same time. This film came out at least in Spain in 2016 was when it was initially
really?
released.
Okay,
so
so it's a
I don't
little
think
bit
it made its
older.
way
Okay.
overseas to here in North America until 2018, if I'm not mistaken. So,
Mm.
but yeah, it has some of those sensibilities in the third act of the films that we just mentioned. Not as goofy though, and way gorier, and going for more of that gross out aspect, most notably in the
If
birth
you want
and post
gore,
birth.
if you want gore, you will not be disappointed with this movie whatsoever. You're gonna have to wait for it because the payoff comes at the end, and there's a few hints that things are gonna get real nasty towards I would say like maybe the middle of the movie. But
once that little
I mean,
twist reveal transpires,
yeah,
that's
it's
where
just absolutely
it almost turns into a much more gross, grandiose movie as far as its aspirations at that point.
Yeah,
It
so
keeps a lot of stuff under wraps for a while. So
Mhm.
yeah, the third act is what we can't really talk about, but that is where things really ramp up and we get that crazy practicalness that we were referencing there. So I mean, all in all, it's not Mikey, unfortunately, one that I think I would revisit a ton of different times, and it's definitely not for the faint of heart once the grossness really gets going. But as far as some weird social taboos, as far as just changing things up in reference to what your typical idea of a virgin is, I mean, yeah, it did some things distinctive and different that I can definitely appreciate, and it has just a really, I don't know, it makes you feel dirty, grimy grossness to the entirety
it
of
has
the
a real
proceedings.
grittiness to it that's undeniably permeates the entire film.
Pretty much the entirety of it, and
Yeah.
but most notably, once you get back to the apartment and everything. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that is going to be our thoughts for this patron review on The Night of the Virgin. This will initially be on the Patreon exclusively, and then it will migrate over to the YouTubes. That's how we always kind of do these things. So, yes, this was, Catherine's, second or third time doing a review, so thanks for chiming in. She was the one who
Anytime.
ended up watching it with me, and, I kind of warned the rest of the team. I'm like, this might not be for everyone, and so we have a lot to cover from our patrons, and we really, truly appreciate all of the support and just awesome ideas and suggestions. Even if we don't love it, we still love getting a better perspective about things that we have not watched previously. So if you want to be a patron, there is a link in the description below. If you're seeing this on YouTube, obviously, and if you are indeed a patron, like Mr. Mnemonic, aka Mikey Trauma Trash, thank you so very much. We greatly appreciate you. And yes, make sure to like, share, subscribe, share out this video if you are seeing it on the regular YouTubes once it makes its way over there. And yes, we do videos here every single day, sometimes two in certain exclusive circumstances. And yes, I guess that's going to be the end of the proceedings. So I've been Jaime and Fuego.
Get related.
And until next time, y'all, remember, stay scared.